In today's video, we are going to be learning how to cut and sew this beautiful side gathered dress right here. I've been seeing this particular style online for a while now, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can go about with the cutting of the dress. If this sounds like something you're interested in, then keep watching. Okay, for this particular style, you'll be needing a pattern paper for this, and you'll be drafting both the back pattern and the front pattern. So I'll be starting with the front pattern. And the first thing I'm going to do is to draw a straight line from the top of my pattern paper right there, and I'll label it as the top line. And then from this point, I'll just go ahead and measure my bust line and my back waistline measurement. So despite the fact that we are drafting a front pattern, I'll be using my back waistline measurements for this to avoid bulginess at the back of the dress when we are done. And then the hip line, you're going to mark it down, and also the length of the dress. So the length of the dress is dependent on how long you want it to be, okay? Mine is not that long, but if you are cutting yours, make sure it's as long as you want it to be. Then after that, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of the pattern paper, and I'll draw a straight line like this. So after we are done with this, the next thing we're going to do is from the bust line, I'm going to go up by 2 inches, and I'm going to be using this as my chest line measurements. So I'll just go ahead and draw a straight line like this. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide my shoulder by 2. I'll mark it on the top line, and I'll also mark it on the chest line right there. And then from that point, I'm going to go down by 1 inch, and with my straight rule, I'm going to connect it, drawing a straight line like this. And then from this point, I'm going to go in by 3 inches right there, and this will be the neck width of this dress. And from this 3 inches point, I'm going to connect it to this point like this, and we have the shoulder for this particular dress. The next thing now, I'll divide my bust by 4. I'll mark it on the chest line right there, and then I'll also divide this line by 2. That is, I'll take the midpoint and I'll go in by 0.5 inch right here. So with my front curve, I'm going to connect from the shoulder through that 1/2 inch point all the way to my bust measurements. And this will be for the front armhole, while for the back armhole, I'm going to connect from the midpoint right there all the way to the bust measurement. So for the neckline, I'm going to be using 3 inches for the front, and for the back, I'll be using 1.5 inches. So with my front curve, I'm going to connect it for the front, and I'll also connect it for the back. So after you're done with this, on the waistline, divide your waist by 4 and you mark it there. And then on the hip line, divide your hip by 4 and mark it there. And then with my straight rule, I'm going to connect it to the chest line, and then from the waistline, I'll connect it to the hip line, curving it a little bit to form the hip curve. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is from the waistline, I'm going to measure down to where I want the gathers to stop. So I want it to be about 4 inches above the knee line. So for mine, it's about 18 inches. That is from my waistline down, is about 18 inches. Then after that, you draw a straight line, and then whatever you have on the hip line, minus 1 inch from there, and then mark it on this point. And then with your straight rule, you're going to connect it like this. And then I'll also draw a straight line all the way to the down part of the dress. So no matter how long the dress is, just connect it, drawing a straight line all the way down. And then after you're done, you're just going to cut it out like this. So after cutting it out, mind you, while I was cutting, I cut out the neckline for just the back and the armhole for just the back. So I'll place this on another piece of pattern paper, and I'm going to be cutting exactly what I have here onto the pattern paper. The only difference is I left 1 inch for sewing allowance, that is for zipper allowance at the center back. So another thing I did was to go in by 1/2 inch on the waistline, and I connected it to the chest line like this, and then I also connected it to the hip line like this. So this is to help prevent bulginess at the back of the dress. So just go ahead and cut it out. So after you're done, I'm just going to remove the front from the back like this, and this is what we have. So the front is going to be on fold, and you're going to be cutting out the neckline like this, and also cut out the armhole like this. So after you are done with this, the next thing we're going to do is go down by 2 inches from here, And then with my French curve, I'm just going to be connecting it all the way to that 18 inches point like this. So at this point, I'm using dotted lines because I'm not quite sure if I'm going to use this particular line. Okay, so just make sure you connect it from the 18 inches points, or depending on the body measurements you are using, and then you connect it all the way to that 2 inches point like this. So when you are quite sure, you can use your normal lines and connect it like this. Then go ahead and label it so that you will not be confused when you are cutting it on the fabric. Then you cut this out. So this is for the front. So for the back, what we are going to do is I'm going to bring the front pattern like this, and I'm going to make sure that I align the front to the back. So at the hip line area of the front, I align it to that of the back, and I'm going to trace out that 2 inches points onto the back like this. And then another thing I'm going to do is for the back, I'm not going to be curving it all the way to the 18 inches points. I'll just go down by 4 inches from the waistline, and I'm going to be connecting it like this. So this is exactly what it looks like on the design that is displayed on our intro video. Okay, so after I'm done with this, I'm just going to place this on the fabric, and I'll be cutting for the front and the back. So for the front, I'm going to be cutting it on fold. So I'll add my sewing allowance to the side seam and also to the neckline and armhole and this side as well. And then I'll do the same thing for the back as well. Okay, so after we are done with the upside, we are going to focus on the down part of the dress. So this is the back and this is the zipper area. Okay, so just go ahead and label it accordingly. Then after you're done, I'm just going to be joining the side seam of the back to the side seam of the front. And the reason is because, as you can see, this particular dress has no side seam. Okay, so we are going to be closing that side seam area by taping the back and the front together. So to be able to do that, I'm just going to be slashing through the hip line so that we can join the hip line of the back to the front like this, and then we can be able to join from the hip line down to the length of the dress as well. So just go ahead and slash it, and then you tape it down like this. So when you're taping it down, it's okay for it to overlap each other, even just a little bit, but not too much. Just make sure you arrange it as closely as possible. Then for the down part, you are going to be doing the same thing as well. You're going to be taping it down from the hip line all the way to where your dress length stops. So after you're done, I'm just going to go ahead and cut through this point as well. This is where the slash and spread is going to stop. Okay, and then now I'll just go ahead and tape it down. After we are done, I'm just going to be placing this on the fabric and I'll be cutting. So just go ahead and label it so that when you are cutting on the fabric, you will not get confused. Okay, so this is a fabric that I'm going to be using to illustrate how we can go about with the cutting of this pattern paper onto the fabric. Okay, so what you're going to do is you'll be needing about 1.5 yards or 2 yards depending on your body size, and you're going to place your fabric on fold. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to be placing my pattern paper onto the fabric. So this is the down part of the pattern paper right here. So you're going to place it 1/2 inch away from the part that is on fold. I actually placed it close to the edge of it, but I later changed it to 1/2 inch. And the reason is because I want it to be easy for us to join it to the upper part of the dress. If you cut it on fold, it's going to be difficult to join. Then for this middle point, that is this mid section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be dividing it into equal parts. So I'm using 2 inches from the top all the way down, and I'm going to use 2 inches on this other side as well. So the 2 inches I'm using is not a standard. I'm just trying to divide it equally on all sides. So you can use 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, depending on your body size. Okay, and then I'm also going to do the same thing on the back part of the pattern paper, and I will connect it like this. So after that, you're just going to go ahead and tape this down so that by the time you're slashing it, it's not going to be scattered. Then after that, I'll just go ahead and start slashing it. So when you're slashing it, you're going to be placing it 2 inches away from each other, and you're going to make sure that they are aligned. You can use 2 inches, you can use 3 inches or more, depending on how full you want the gathers to be and also the fabric that you have available. So right now, the fabric that I have is not up to 1.5 yards, so I'm just separating it by 1 inch on all sides. and I will continue doing it until I reach the hip line of this dress. After that, I'm going to also go ahead and divide this upper part into equal parts, just like I did for the mid section. So I used 2 inches, and then for this part I use 1.5 inches. I was using 2 inches, but I realized that it will not be enough, so I had to reduce it to 1.5 inches, and then I'll just connect it like this. So I'll do the same thing onto the back as well. I'll connect it. So like I said, there is no standard measurements here. I'm just trying to divide it equally. As you can see right here, I felt like it was not equal, so I had to just correct it and make sure it's as equal as possible. Okay, then after that, you're just going to go ahead and slash it to the upper part of it, and you're going to be spreading it onto the fabric. So remember I mentioned that we're supposed to leave 1/2 inch on the down part of the dress. That is, we are not supposed to cut it on fold. We can leave 1/2 inch, and then later on we can then close that part. It will be way easier that way. And then also pay attention to the way my pattern paper are aligned, like they are arranged properly. Even though there is a 1 inch difference, one part pattern paper is aligning to the next pattern paper. Then now just go ahead and add your 1/2 inch sewing allowance from the midpoint all the way to the down part of the dress that is in front right here. And then now you're also going to add 1/2 inch on the upper part of the dress, which is the back part right there. And then for this back part, remember we already added our zipper allowance. So what we are going to do is we're not going to be adding any allowance again to the back. So just connect it all the way to the down part like this. So 1/2 inch on top, and then no allowance for the down side. And then you continue connecting it all the way to the other side as well without adding any sewing allowance to it. So like I said, we already added sewing allowance to this, and that's why we are not adding any allowance again. This is a midpoint right here that connects the back and the front. This is a hip line, and this is where the gathers is going to start from. So you gather from here all the way to the back side at this point right here. This is where your gathers is going to stop. There will be no gathers in this place right here. This is where the gathers will stop. There will be no gathers here, and then you will start your gathers from this point all the way to this point right here. So that's what the back is going to look like. Okay, so for the upper part of the dress, this is what we have right here. So I'm just going to place this on the fabric, and I'm going to be cutting. I'll be cutting the front on fold, while the back I'll be cutting it with the zipper allowance. And I'm going to add allowance to the neckline, the armhole area, the side seam, and also on this point right here. And after I'm done, I'll close the neckline with a lining or a bias, and I'm going to be joining the back and the front at the side seam right there like this. So I'll just pin this down to show you exactly what you're supposed to do. So after pinning it down, that is after sewing it together, and you open it, this is what you should have right there. So this is where we are going to be joining that down part of the dress too. So this is the midpoint where the back and the front meet, and this is the front, while this is the back. So for the back, you're going to gather it right there and join the other side, while for the front you're going to gather it all the way to the down part. So like I said, this is where the gathers is going to start from all the way to this side, and this is where it's going to stop. So just gather it and join it to the back part of the dress. And then for this is where the side seam, that is the back and the front, meets. So when you're joining it to the fabric, this is where it's going to join at that point right there. And that's basically all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. Please like the video, leave a comment, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.